Hey NASNPRO, I'm Danae Markland, and I am a licensed esthetician and certified medical laser technician for over 20 years. I've spent my entire career studying the science behind skin physiology, skin conditions, and how specific ingredients interact with the skin so that way we can get the very best results possible. Today, I'm so excited to talk to you about chemical peels and how science has recently evolved in order to take advantage of the new information that we have on the role of inflammation and how the skin functions and how it ages. Chemical peels have been used for 100 years at this point, and the science behind them really hasn't changed too much in that time. But recently, we've found new ways to deliver acids into the skin where they're going to do the most good without the inflammatory component. I hope you enjoy. Cellular health span and longevity are crucial to understanding how the skin actually functions. Every cell in our body is designed to be born, to replicate, and then to eventually die in a healthy way. Science and medicine are increasing the average human lifespan. However, our health span is not increasing at the same rate. What good is living an extra 10 years if we're not healthy enough to enjoy those extra years? This applies to every cell in our body, including our skin cells. We shouldn't just aim to stimulate collagen production or reduce hyperpigmentation. We should aim to go deeper. Our goal should be to work with how our cells actually function or malfunction and how that leads to physical and visible aging. Senescent cells are now thought to be the root cause of aging. Cellular senescence is a disruption of our body's natural cell cycle that leads to visible and physical aging. Senescent cells are often referred to as zombie cells because they're not alive, but they're not quite dead either. In addition, they spread a secretion to the surrounding cells called SASP, and that wreaks havoc. It infects the surrounding tissue and leads to more senescent cells being developed. In addition to stimulating collagen production and reducing discoloration in the skin, our treatments should aim to remove existing senescent cells and prevent the production of future senescence, effectively preventing and addressing the visible signs of aging at the source. Just like everything else in our bodies, as we age, our immune system slows down. So the reason that senescent cells aren't being disposed of the way that they should is because of a reduced inflammatory response. Some cells are aging prematurely because of stress, which is why our traditional method of exfoliation with chemical peels isn't necessarily the best approach. If we are creating inflammation on a monthly basis, we're taking something that used to be acute and making it a more chronic form of inflammation. And more inflammation means more senescent cells, which means faster aging. So now that we've identified that inflammation and cellular senescence are considered a main cause of aging and cellular breakdown, let's talk about how we can counteract that potentially. Alpha hydroxy acids, or AHA, have been shown in many studies to reduce senescent cells through various mechanisms. They can also reduce the amount of SASP, or senescence-associated secretory phenotype, and improve the overall function of mitochondria and cellular respiration. However, the issue is that the inflammation associated with the beneficial percentages of alpha hydroxy acids and the low pH that we typically need to use for traditional chemical peels counteracts these potential benefits. So in order to increase the depth of penetration and induce proper exfoliation and benefit, we can utilize delivery systems instead of high percentages and low pH. So make no mistake, traditional chemical peels absolutely have great benefits. They induce desquamation and cell turnover. Both are incredibly important to the overall appearance and function of the skin. They stimulate collagen production, typically through the wound healing response, which is fine when you're doing it on an annual or even a quarterly basis. But once we start to do it monthly, it again takes something that used to be more acute inflammation and makes it more chronic. And last but not least, it's going to reduce all types of imperfections, things like acne breakouts, hyperpigmentation, textural imperfections, etc. The cons, however, of traditional chemical peels is that there's typically a good amount of discomfort associated, whether it is burning, stinging, itching, anything like that. They tend to be somewhat uncomfortable at the time of treatment. It's typically manageable, but it is there. Post-treatment limitations. After traditional chemical peels, there's this laundry list of things that you can't do, and that will turn a lot of patients off. So we lose the chance to treat someone because they're not interested in not being able to live their daily life afterward. Post-treatment risks. With any type of more traditional or aggressive chemical peel, you're going to have risks of post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. If you're going deeper, potentially you have the risk of things like infections. So risks increase as the percentage of acid and the aggressiveness of acids increases. Downtime and inflammation go hand in hand. So the more inflammation that you're inducing, the more downtime the patient might have after the treatment. Traditional chemical peels, you'll typically loosen up that stratum corneum and deeper layers of the epidermis and allow that to shed off in about 2 to 3 days afterwards. So the peeling process itself, when you're going to see that end result, can be up to 7 to 10 days. And some people just aren't interested in that length of time before they'll see their results. So the issue is that depth of penetration has historically been tied to methods that naturally increase inflammation in the skin. So with traditional chemical peels, you're typically needing to leave the acid in contact with the skin, or time on tissue is increasing. You are increasing the amount of acid that you're using, or you're using more aggressive acids in general. Or you're having to lower the pH of the chemical peel, which lowers the pH of the skin significantly, and that also increases inflammation. If we're able to eliminate this inflammatory piece, we can get all of the great benefits without the hassle, the risk, the drama, and the downtime. The best way for us to go about increasing penetration is through advanced delivery systems. Trans-Q-Tol, for example, is a delivery system that has been used in pharmaceutical drugs for decades at this point. And what it basically does is it will help with the penetration of both lipophilic and hydrophilic ingredients. So you're able to breach that lipid bilayer in the skin without increasing inflammation and irritation on the surface. All right, so how do we overcome this inflammatory hurdle? First and foremost, you don't ever want to use a chemical peel with a pH of below 3. Once you go below 3, you are significantly increasing the amount of stimulation and surface inflammation. We also want to avoid high percentages of any single acid. And it's also smart to limit your use of corrosive peeling agents, things like trichloroacetic acid or TCA. These are caustic chemicals that are creating a controlled burn in the skin. All of these considerations are going to make sure that you are limiting inflammation, and it will also ensure that you have a treatment option for all Fitzpatrick's and all sensitivity levels. Next generation chemical peels also help us to overcome the hassles that are traditionally associated with chemical peels. First and foremost is the prep. Most chemical peels require a week or two of at-home preparation in order to make sure that you get the best results and that you don't have unwanted side effects. Next generation peels eliminate that need. Next generation chemical peels are also layer and leave on. This isn't necessarily new, but a layer and leave on approach versus a timed and neutralization approach helps to limit the risk of burns when left on the tissue for too long. The use of no inflammation and smart blends of different acids with delivery systems help us to eliminate the downtime concern. There may still be some very light flaking, but this is more the exception than the rule. You will see those amazing dramatic results, but without the downtime. We also don't have heat precautions when it comes to next generation chemical peels. We don't have to limit perspiration. People can go right to the gym afterward if they wanted to. They can swim immediately after. They can go to that soccer game. Chemical peels should enhance one's lifestyle, not limit their opportunity to live their life. By eliminating inflammation, next generation chemical peels also will improve consistency. You're going to be able to see more patients more often. You will continue to see amazing results, and in the end, that's going to mean more revenue and a better bottom line for you. Speaking of bottom line, try and find partners that distribute chemical peels as a multiple treatment per bottle versus one vial per patient. Consumables are also something to look out for. That will significantly increase your cost per treatment. Shelf life is another consideration. A stable and quality formula will remain stable for 2+ years. And these treatments will allow you to treat more frequently. And so that means that you can take someone who you were maybe treating every 6 to 8 weeks and bring them in as few as every 2 weeks, increasing the amount of times that you're seeing them per year. All right, I know what you're thinking. All of this stuff that I'm saying sounds too good to be true. How can we possibly get all of the benefit without the risk, without the downtime, at a lower cost, and so on and so forth? But I want to show you results as well. So this particular patient received only one treatment. She's a higher Fitzpatrick of Indian descent. She received a peel that contains 15% mandelic, 10% lactic acid, 3% tranexamic acid or TXA, and that transcutol delivery system. We also boosted it with a 1.25% retinol, CoQ10, and squalane enhancement product. Next patient, we have, again, just one treatment. I love this photo because we can see how close we can get up to the eyes. The same peel solution and same enhancement were used on this individual patient. And again, it was just one treatment. Here is another patient after just one treatment, same treatment combination. You can see the improvement as far as texture, redness, overall clarity in the complexion. Here's an acne patient with a different peel solution. Here we used an 18% mandelic, 10% glycolic, 2% salicylic acid blend, and then we used that same retinol enhancement treatment. Here we did 2 services on her, but you can see the progression. So you're seeing significant improvement with each service and then eventually clearance over time. Here is another patient that received just one treatment. You can see that redness, texture, and overall clarity improving significantly. Same thing here, one treatment. And then this is one of my favorite pictures. This shows how we can take something like severe sun damage and get such dramatic improvements after, again, just one service. Here we did dermaplaning first, and then we applied that 15% mandelic, 10% lactic, 3% tranexamic acid. We also boosted it with that retinol enhancement that we talked about in previous photos. Right, next generation chemical peels versus traditional chemical peels. It's all about finding that sweet spot. We're looking for an ideal pH. We don't want to go anywhere below a 3 or anywhere above a 4.5. We can increase penetration with smart delivery systems like transcutol, which will take hydrophilic ingredients like alpha hydroxy acids and deliver them into the skin where they're going to do the most good, but without increasing inflammation. We want to utilize additional beneficial ingredients all in one bottle. So things like tranexamic acid or TXA is going to help with all types of discoloration, whether it's hyperpigmentation, redness, yellowing of the skin from glycation, or just an overall muddled complexion. TXA is a great method in order to brighten an overall complexion. You can also look for things like salicylic acid to help enhance the benefits for acne breakouts, or hexylresorcinol for antioxidant and anti-acne benefits. We also want to pay attention to percentage. We can get ideal percentages into the skin without having to go overboard with the amount of aggressive acids that we're applying on the surface. So we want to limit the amount of inflammation, limit the amount of visible peeling post-treatment, and limit the amount of discomfort that the patient is experiencing at the time of treatment. And also look for easy application, low price points so that your cost per treatment stays down and your profit margin stays up. And we want to make sure that you're able to easily combine your chemical peels with the other services, devices, and treatment techniques that you already have in your practice. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about next generation chemical peels. Once again, my name is Danae Markland, and I would love to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions at all. I hope to see you again soon.